right. Good evening to those of you on the East Coast. Good afternoon to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us wherever you are watching from. And just as we do every Saturday, we're going to be doing This Week in Review, the show that gives you the rundown of the goings on in the world of entertainment over the course of the week. And as always, I am not going to be alone in talking about some of the goings on this week. So I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Spillman. What's going on? Let me get him on here. What's going on,
What's
Chief?
going on? What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Hello, beautiful people. How are we doing? I hope we had a good week. It's April Fool's Day. I hope no one told you that they was
It is.
pregnant and you believed it. They are not pregnant. They didn't get fired. Don't give them any money. Don't believe anything anybody said today. I know it's late in the day to have to tell you this, but it's April Fool's Day. Don't even
It
believe
is.
your mama. So, be careful out there. Let's
All
get to
right.
these topics.
Yes, let's get into it. Let's get into it because we actually have a jam-packed show with some of the topics of things that have happened this week, y'all. So, starting off first, the first story that we had over the course of this week, we did get word of what character Brie Larson, who many of us know as Captain Marvel in the MCU, what character she'll be playing in another franchise, which is of course Fast 10. She shared some insight in an interview that she did with Total Film, in which she revealed what character she would be playing and what her relation is to that say character in past Fast and Furious films, and that is none other than the daughter of Mr. Nobody. So, just to give you, some quick insight into Mr. Nobody, if you don't recall, Mr. Nobody, he made his appearance in Fast 7 and recruited Dom and his team when they were originally going up against uh, help me out, Spill, with Shaw,
Yeah,
when they were
yeah.
originally trying to go up against Shaw, and he's made appearances not only in 7 and in 8, but also made an appearance in 9 as well. However, the status of his of whether he's dead or alive is still up for debate. They kind of left it open, and of course, in the world of Fast and Furious, never say never. People come back even when it clearly seems like they're have bit the bullet. They still make a
Mm-hmm.
return. So
Mm-hmm.
she like I said, she specified that she would be playing the daughter of Mr. Nobody. Spills, what are your thoughts on this revelation?
I'm real happy that Brie Larson is getting these bags because we're happy to see people being successful. I'm happy that she's joined the family because it's all about the family. It's all about that. Maybe she can be on the set and keep Vin Diesel away from The Rock because they don't like each other because it's like it can only be one
Well, The Rock,
ambiguously
thankfully,
bald
on that
dude.
topic, The Rock is actually not going to be in this film, so
Okay, see, there you
you
go.
actually can
There you go.
bypass. You can bypass that
There
issue.
you go. They say
So
get your man up out of here. There can only be one bald ambiguous dude. They said it's only one light skinned king. So Brie Larson, I think she's a good actress. Obviously, again, we talk about it every week, but the people on the internet be mad at these actresses about God knows what. I don't know why you people be so mad at these people on the internet. So I'm just happy to see her. But we'll see how she does. The Fast and Furious, they print money. Let's be honest, they print money. They have cool card tricks and stuff, and that's cool. Um, you know, so I just want to see them do good. I really don't have anything negative to really say about her. We'll see how it plays out. Obviously, we haven't seen the movie, but it's pretty interesting. It's good to see that they're moving forward, keeping it hot and fresh with the hottest and freshest action stars. Because that's one thing that the Fast and Furious franchise has done well is they've taken on new stars and not missed a beat. They took on Jason Statham, didn't miss a beat. They took on The Rock, didn't miss a beat. Um, they even brought rappers into the fold without it being too much. You know, it used to be that if you bring rappers into a movie, it's a bad
You have
movie.
Jason
So
Momoa as a big bad. So there you go.
yeah, there you go. See, they got Jason Momoa too. So you know, they printing money. They're printing it. So there you go. You know, happy to see it. Hopefully, we'll check it out in theaters, and it'll be another blockbuster. I'm excited to
It'll
see
be
it. How do you
interesting. She
feel?
did. I was gonna say she did share some information just to go into a little bit more detail, and the actual full story is
Mm-hmm.
actually available on in Total Film. I believe they had released this interview on Thursday. But just to give you just a small quote of what she had to say about the character, she's playing a character called Tess, and she said Tess is a little bit of a mystery. She's part of the agency, but she also goes rogue and edges more towards the family side. But that means she has a lot to prove. So, she goes on to say that Dom gives her an impossible task. So, our question is, as viewers, is what is that impossible task? But she goes on to say that's going to require a lot of thought and effort and putting herself at risk. So, I guess you could say she's basically towing the line between the agency or that I guess you could say the espionage world, so to speak, that
Mm-hmm.
her father resides in, but also trying to find her niche and find her fit within Dom's group. So we'll see what happens with it. It's always cool, just like you were saying, when they bring in new blood, so to speak, into the franchise, it keeps things fresh. It brings a different energy. So, I'm always open to them bringing in, a new folks into, to the family, so to speak. So we'll see what happens. I don't feel one way or the other about it. Bree, just like you said, Bree is a terrific actress. So, we'll see what she, brings with it. And it'll be interesting to see that maybe with her appearance in this film, we may get some further indications, not just because of her, her ties to the espionage world, but also just simply because of that familial that tie as a family, as a daughter. We may find out perhaps the fate of Mr. Nobody, because I know it had been speculated one way or another of whether or not he is, dead, confirmed dead, or actually alive. So, maybe she'll have a throwaway line in which she is, commenting on that, or maybe we have that cameo in which she, has that moment also, maybe towards the end of the film, with Kurt Russell. We never know. Just never know. In the world of Fast and Furious, anything can happen. People, like I said, people
It's
can
like Dragon Ball.
clearly in your eyes,
It's like
clearly in your
Dragon Ball.
eyes, there's no way they would have survived that and they should have died. But, time and time again, we've had them come back a second time, a third time. This is just anything. It's basically a comic book at this point. As I said, in the last couple of installments, which is just like what I was talking about with John Wick. I feel like Fast and Furious has become a verb now, where you could
Oh
say,
yeah.
yeah, they Fast and Furious that franchise, where in
Mm-hmm.
terms of them really pushing the envelope on realism. I mean, and don't get me wrong, we love it and we enjoy it, of course, because we wouldn't be on installment 10 if it wasn't entertaining in any shape or form. But still, it's
They're not
always
drag
going to have
racing
those
no
moments.
more. It's not
Yeah,
about drag racing
yeah.
anymore. They don't they
I
don't
always it's always been fascinating to me to just look back, especially when they have a new installment come out, because a lot of times, whenever we have any new installment of any franchise, a lot of times you'll see on TV they'll have marathons and things like that to catch you up if you haven't maybe seen one of the installments. And it's
mm-hmm.
just crazy though, when moments of that happen and they do like these huge marathons, and I have to think back and say, gosh, like the first film, it was just a little race
It's drag
film.
races.
Here we
They just
are.
drag racing.
Here we are. We got mercenaries. We got drug lords. We got spies. Like it's gotten insane. But hat tip to them that they've been able to keep our interest thus far with as far as they've been able to push this franchise. So any last thoughts before we move on to our next story?
I just feel for Lil Bow Wow because he was in that third movie, and I'm sure when he was in that third movie, he was like, "I saved this franchise. They're gonna keep me on here forever." We have not seen Lil Bow Wow on anything after that. They act like that Tokyo movie
No,
never even happened.
no, no, he was in the
Was
last
Bow
one.
Wow in one of them? He was in the last
Yeah,
one.
he was in the
Oh,
last one. No,
see,
he
there
was in the
you
last
go.
one
See, I
because
didn't
he
see the
had a
last one.
hand. Okay, there you go. He had a
There
hand.
you go.
Him and
Good for him.
I'm brain farting on Drift King. Both of them. They were in the
Yeah.
last one because they helped two of the characters, and I'm brain farting on them. I apologize. Ludacris's character. I'm going by
Yeah.
their actual names, but Ludacris
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Tyrese, their characters actually went out into space and they made like a do it yourself, a makeshift, kind of rocket, and
Yeah.
they have our two Tokyo Drift folks to thank for
Good
that.
for him.
So
I'm happy for that. Thanks
yeah,
for
yeah, no,
updating me.
they popped up. They popped
Good
up
for him.
last installment. Even
Yeah.
if it was just for like a small portion of the film, they popped up. So we'll see. If they ever
They bring
return
people
or make a
back. That's
comeback.
good. Yeah. So that's good news.
So but all right, switching gears. Another story that I wanted to get into. I know just last week we were talking about John Wick and the things that we enjoyed about the film, and the the portions of it that were a suspension of disbelief that were issues that both of us had. I think more so with me than with you, Spill. I think that you kind of took it as is, and I know I kind of like went off on a tangent about it. But speaking on the subject of John Wick, one of the stars, and I apologize if I'm butchering the name. So Hiroyuki Sanada, he teased that he has a project that's coming out in which it will be his first project as a lead, and this is none other than FX's Shogun. So in this story, and this is in an interview that he had with Variety. He had commented on, after 20 years of being in the industry, it was cool to do this project in which he plays a feudal lord, Tornaga, Lord Tornaga, and he comments on the fact that it is his first film, not only as a producer, but also his first film as a lead. And this was kind of enlightening to me because he's been in tons of films, and
Oh
I could
yeah.
go all the way back. We most recently, of course, we had John Wick, we had Mortal Kombat, we've had the Wolverine. People forget The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, like really
Mm-hmm.
going back, and I'm like, really, this is his first film as a lead? And when I really kind of dig deep and think of those films, he's absolutely right, because he in those films, even though, and this is a testament to his capabilities as an actor that made me picture that he was the lead, he really wasn't the lead in a lot of those films. He was either acting as a part of an ensemble, or he was a supporting character. So Spill, you hear this revelation of him doing this first project as a lead, finally, after, as he comments on, after 20 years of coming over to the US and doing projects, acting in projects in the US. What are your thoughts on it?
So I think he's a great actor. The sword work that he did in the movie was great. So if he's going to be a shogun, we know that that's going to be ill. We know that
It's going to be on point,
he's
for
going to be
real. Yeah.
parrying people. He's going to be hitting them with the on guards and stuff, and hopefully we're going to get a lot of arms being chopped off and all kinds of other craziness. Hopefully, I don't want to say we aren't going to say the other things that are a little bit worse, because we are monetizing this, so let's not get too graphic. But the feudal Japan was a crazy place, and if you said something wrong, especially to the shogun, you could lose your head. So I want to see that. That'll be very interesting for me. As a connoisseur of some of the art that's come out, about feudal Japan and that period of time. I think that's a very interesting time. Anytime that you have like a place that's we're going to stick to us and we're not going to listen to what other people do. We're not even going to let other people come here. That's a very interesting storytelling arc because you can tell it as like, you know, we was living our lives and we was living the way that we knew how to live. We don't let nobody tell us how to live. So a lot of that court intrigue because you know we get these kind of shows for Europeans all the time. So it's good to see different kind of people doing these kind of shows where we could talk about like the court or you know the intrigue, the political intrigue that happens in these kind of situations. So I think it'll be very interesting. Um, you know, the feudal Japan is a very interesting time in the past, and you know, it seems like everybody's doing stuff on that. You know, so I'm just really interested in it. I wish him the best. He's a great actor. I think that you know, you said he hasn't gotten a look in 20 years. You know, we could just chalk that up to Hollywood. So you know, I don't want to say it's Hollywood, but you know, Hollywood be Hollywooding. So you know, unfortunately, it's good to see him getting his shine, but you know, it's also you know you could be making movies with megastars for 20 years, and then after 20 years, they say, oh, let's give them a chance now that you're old. So it's like you know, give people more of a chance, but it's good to see him getting that chance.
So here's my thing. You know, as I said, terrific actor, has been in a multitude of projects, and a lot of times whenever he's on screen, you know, he steals the movie. He overshadows
Hmm.
the person who's supposed to be the lead in the film, which again, testament to him, you know, as an actor. While oftentimes, like, you know, I picture him as a lead. And when he, you know, when he makes this revelation of this being his first time as the lead, it was so, you know, surprising. But you know, in terms of what you were saying, it's unfortunate, you know, that it's taken this long for that to happen. And I'm sure, you know, it's the recent the recent award season that we've, you know, witnessed with the Oscars has you know helped, you know, helped, you know, with this, you know, project being done, along with, you know, Crazy Rich Asians and you know, multitude of other, you know, films that have demonstrated that, you know, just like with Black Panther demonstrate, you know, proving, which we already knew, but proving, you know, to Hollywood that, you know, you can have a project that is centered around, you know, another culture, and have, you know, a predominant cast for that specific culture to be able to tell that story. And so it's interesting that probably maybe five or yeah, I would say probably even 5 years ago, that maybe we, or just a tad beyond that, we wouldn't have ever seen this project get made. And you know, it's unfortunate that it takes, you know, instances like what we saw with, like I said, with Black Panther, with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, with Crazy Rich Asians and many others, with Everything Everywhere All at Once and many others, for us to get more projects like these.
Hmm.
So, you know, it's terrific that, you know, hats off to him that he has, you know, his has this series that it will be his first time as lead. You know, that's a huge deal. One other thing that he talks about too, and I want to, you know, comment on that briefly. And again, this interview can be, you know, found in Variety, guys, because it was in his promotion, of course, with John Wick 4, which is currently in theaters now. You know, he was questioned about, you know, just the idea of having a project that, you know, making sure, is it you know, tricky sometimes, or worrisome, of there being inaccuracies in how Japanese society is portrayed, you know, within, you know, Western projects. And
Hmm.
so, you know, one thing that he talks about, that he comments with this project that was very exciting for him, he and I'm not not to quote him directly, but to summarize it, he comments on a lot of times even though in many of the projects that he's had, many folks have been respectful of listening to his suggestions of how to do certain things if it is supposed to be capturing an element of Japanese culture. With this upcoming project, it was the first time, in quoting what he says in an interview, it was his first time of him having the right to, actually say something, to actually have a Japanese, cast and crew, and to have, costumers, wig specialists, and set designers, and making sure that it was done right. So basically, actually having a team that was really focusing on that versus him kind of acting as, I guess you could say, kind of a consultant, where he kind of felt the pressure of being, that go-to person of some, of other folks coming to him. It's like, are we doing this the right way? Is this, is this the way it needs to be done? Which, is all great and good, but, it's better to be able to have an entire team that's trying to execute, that duty, and their entire, and, their purpose is to ensure that authenticity versus, just relying on just getting suggestions from one of your actors. That's quite a difference. And similarly, if we're picturing, if you have a film that talks about Black culture, right? If you don't have a team that is, predominantly similar to what we had in Black Panther, that, are predominantly Black, it's going to be, it's kind of a weird dynamic where you're trying to be authentic, but it's hard to be authentic when you don't have, the folks there that, live it and are a part of that culture, and a part of that every day. So that part of the story in which he talked about of in prior projects of him a lot of times feeling like he, felt the weight of kind of acting as like a consultant that people went to, versus now having an entire team to execute, those said things, and to be able to have the authority to be able to do so was terrific to hear. So do you have any additional, thoughts before we continue on to our next story, which
I
is
just
John Wick
wish
related? But go ahead.
John Wick related. I just wish that Hollywood would get out of his own way, because they waste so much money on bad projects that they just step on too much. And then when they get projects like these, they don't promote them. They don't give them the chance to do what they need to on a lot of different groups. And it's like, we can't be homogenous in our messaging. I understand that that's how Hollywood was run for a very, very long time. They do things the way that they do things, but you know, if y'all want to make some money for real, look at all of the successes they've had from just cherry picking stuff from other places to bring it here. And so, they just,
I would say
it's
at
just
the end of
sad.
the day, money talks, and as long as the project, that's why it's so important, showing the support where necessary. As long as the projects are demonstrating that they can generate revenue, that they can be successful, then we'll get a lot more of them. So that, it that's why, it's so important when there are films out there that you want to see more of, that you support them and that you encourage others to support them, because otherwise, if they don't get supported, guys, we're not going to see them. Like, they're not going to get
Hmm.
made, point blank. So but yeah, no, I'm super excited about this. Definitely looking forward to what he has going with that show. And of course, like I said, you can currently see him now in John Wick, in which he is also awesome in. So
Oh, so cold.
all right. So as I said, the next story is also John Wick related. And so I know we were reviewing the film last week, but news came, which is not shocking, that there are now talks of John Wick 5 being made. Right now, the talks of John Wick 5 are back on the table, of course, after the insane amount of cash that the current installment has generated thus far. And just to give you kind of a idea of the comparison, John Wick 4 is the second best domestic opening of Keanu Reeves's live action career, just behind The Matrix Reloaded, which came out about 2 decades ago, guys. It's hard to believe that it's
That's
been that
crazy.
long. It came
That's
out 2
crazy.
decades ago. I remember when I
It
saw it in
did.
theaters, guys. So we're aging ourselves here, Spills. But yes, so there are talks of John Wick 5 being made now. There are some complications to this because I'm gonna
Yeah.
throw this up. I'm gonna throw this up so that way we not like alienating anybody. But
Spoiler
spoilers are
alert!
spoilers.
Spoiler alert!
So in the recent, if you don't want to hear anything, so I suggest you cut off now. Is in the recent installment of John Wick and John Wick Chapter 4, our title character bit the bullet at the end. So in terms of what that means for the franchise, does that mean that we're going to have it pick up with another character and they're just going to say it's within the John Wick universe, or are they somehow going to try to find a way to have this character return? So that's the thing that is going to be really interesting based off of how the recent film wrapped up. There seemed to be some implication that John Wick, will continue onwards. I already have a picture if they do the next installment of what the promotional material would look like. But before we get into that, what are your thoughts of the obvious implication that we will likely get a John Wick 5?
Well, like you said, the money be talking. The money be talking. So, John Wick 4, they had money for this and they made money with this. And you'd be stupid to walk away from something like this. I will say, no spoilers, but I didn't see him actually, like, get put in the box. I always, just like we said with the Fast and Furious, they make it seem like somebody died and they might have a casket, but I mean, they might have a headstone. But headstones don't be bodies. If you see poltergeists, they can move them headstones, but them bodies still be alive. So, like, you got to be careful with the bodies. He kind of slumped in the sunrise. He slumped, but that doesn't mean he was dead. In a movie, generally, I didn't see nobody cry after that. And generally, that's what happens in movies. If you actually died, everybody will cry. I didn't see nobody cry. I just saw them be like ambiguous about it. So, maybe they're like,
So here's my thing. Here's my thing. So I believe, based off of the way it was executed and what they did it very cleverly. I will say that they did it very cleverly in that you could go either way with it. You could have ended the story with this film, or what could have happened. And I'm gonna keep this. Yeah, they could have ended the story as is. If they decide never to do another installment, or if they can't come up with a decent idea, this is a good place to cut it off, and it can remain as is. But because we never saw a body, yeah, he did slump over. We never saw a body. We had the tombstone there, but again, like it could
what's
have
the
just made a
tombstone?
tombstone.
Yeah,
They
what's
could
the
have just made a
tombstone?
tombstone. And one could argue, just like we had with our villain in this film, you talked about trying to destroy the idea of John Wick. If folks think that he's passed on, no one's gonna come looking for him anymore. Like
That's right.
he's cool to, like, just he basically is coming full circle back to the point that he was in the first installment. So one could argue that him faking his death is actually a perfect setup of them, continuing that story. And maybe, and and here I'm going, guys. Like, hopefully, I'm giving stories to y'all out here, to the writers, and I'm gonna come calling if I find out that this is what they do,
That's
because
right. Because you're the first one to come
but
up with this idea. You are
but
original
here's the thing.
genius.
Here's one way they could go with it, because based off of what they had, if the implication is that they believe that Wick is no more, they if they find out that he is in fact alive, it sets things back in motion with the table, because now they believe that they still have to, you know, go after Wick. Or maybe it could be, something else with, one of the other characters that we have come to know within the world of John Wick, who are, under some mysterious circumstances assassinated. Could be Winston, could be someone
Mm-hmm.
else, and it
Mm-hmm.
brings him out of the shadows again of saying, "I thought you were dead." Nah, man, I'm not. So it could be a circumstance, because now that I think about it, of what we had in the recent installment, they did. Now that I think about it, they did get free him and say that he was good before, like, before he walked off. So he
Right.
was he was good to go. So if we're thinking of another circumstance, I would say it would perhaps need to be one of those other characters that we know and love, that are allies of Wick, that somehow, very lovable characters that we know, that somehow bite the bullet that brings him back into action. Because, like I said, if I'm thinking of the promotional material right now, because they always have like really cool like character posters when it comes to the John Wick franchise, I can see it
Yep.
right now. It's going to be a tombstone, and it's going to say John Wick on it. And it's going to say Baba Yaga returns on such and such date.
You
I can
can't kill
already
a
see it right now. I
boogeyman.
can call it right now. That's what we're going to have. So, but do you have any thoughts on any final thoughts on
They make too much
the
money. They making too much money.
Mm. Oh, Spill, I lost you there for a second.
Sorry about that. I got a call. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Yep. Sorry
But yeah,
about
no,
that,
go ahead.
fans.
You
But
good?
he's a bad man. He could do all kinds of things, and he carries the equipment of the gaffers and the bus and the best boys and everybody. Why would you not want to do another movie with this man? He's a good dude. Keanu Reeves is one of the few stand-up people in Hollywood, allegedly. So, um, they're making a boatload of money. They do practical effects. They got people. They got stuntmen that they paying. All them stuntmen getting paid. So all the stuntmen in Hollywood are like, heck yeah, we're gonna do another movie. So I would just like to see him do his thing. I want to see another one. But if they just end it here, it makes sense. But I'd like to see him do their thing.
For sure.
I just,
For sure.
he's just. It's a good franchise, but I'm low key a little tired, but it's at least original idea that's made it into its own franchise, so I don't mind it as much. But I'm kind of franchise crazy at this point. Everything's a franchise. Everything has to make more money or more money or more money. It can't just be an original idea. That's a different topic for a different day. But I like seeing the gung fu because that's cool. Like the whole idea of gung fu is something that again, how did they not come up with that in movies at the beginning?
I want
Punching
to
people and
actually, I'm
shooting them
glad
at
you
the
brought
same
that
time?
up. I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember you mentioning that in the review, and no doubt about it, with John Wick, it was incredible what they did with quote unquote the gung fu, but we have had some films that have touched on it, and there's some films that I want to say there's one film that people sleep on a lot. That's a terrific action movie, and it deals with like gung fu. If anyone out there has seen the movie Equilibrium with
Oh
Christian
yeah.
Bale,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
crucial. You want to
Oh
talk
yeah.
about gung fu?
Oh yeah.
Serious, serious,
Oh yeah.
serious.
So
I definitely recommend if you guys have never seen Equilibrium, and it's not no slight on John Wick. I love this franchise too, but I always like to give films their due when they've done it before something else, and other films give credit. That's why I always kind of get I'll be honest, I get a little bit in my feelings sometimes when people talk about, oh, X-Men and Spider-Man, started the superhero craze. Bruh, Blade came out a whole 2 years in front of X-Men and Spider-Man.
Oh
And on top
yes.
of that too, even though the film is centered around bullet time with the Matrix, it is not the first film that did bullet time.
Yeah.
Blade did bullet time the first before the Matrix. So again, little trivia for you. But it's always great, when there's an opportunity for people to know that there are films out there that have done it first, and it encourages people to check those films out.
Yes.
But be that as it may, let's switch gears into our next story. And unfortunately, the guest that we had today, I was going to actually bring in shout out. He had a as emergency that transpired, but shout out to Hugo, who runs a GammaCon. We want to talk about our next story here, and that's none other centered around the show known only as E3. It was announced this week that E3 will be canceling its show, not only its physical events, but also its digital events. Spielman, what are your thoughts on this show having to cancel this year? From this hasn't been the first occurrence, in lieu of what we've had within this, COVID era, whether it's been during the COVID era or as we're slowly moving away, from that pandemic. What are your thoughts as other shows are continuing to, thrive? We actually have, a cancellation with this show, not only digitally, but also with this physical show.
I'm just, this is just sadly because of the COVID and everything, people started looking at their books and they started saying, you know what? We already doing a PlayStation Plus, or we already doing an Xbox Expo, or whatever other expos they have. So they are, I'm sorry, State of Play and all those other ones. So they're saying, why would we go to this other one? And we already go to these places all the time. So it's kind of sad to see it go because they really E3 got a lot of these places started, but if you don't innovate and if you don't have a premium on this content, then unfortunately you can't keep the doors open because you can't show previews that somebody else has shown 3 months earlier. Like that's just unfortunately not a
Right.
reason to do a show. So
Right.
it's sad to see them go because they're like one of the OGs of this whole thing. Because I think that they probably I don't know how old they are, but they definitely are up there with like way before I think before any of the platforms were doing their own things. I know that for sure. So sad to see them go, but it just is the nature of the beast. Everybody's tightening their belts, and some people tighten their belts too tight, then they pop. So it's sad, but I'd like to see them continue on. So I just think that E3. I think they premiered. I think if I remember correctly, I don't quote me on this, ladies and gentlemen, but I think PlayStation 2 might have debuted at E3 many years ago when these things first came out. I think I remember that. Don't quote me. I might be acting crazy and just saying things out of my
Well,
head. But
I'll say this. While you're taking a look is, it's just like you were saying. There are a lot of shows that are out there that have a small niche when it comes to video games. Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con. They have a small niche of it. When it comes to their video games, because I remember when Injustice came out, I actually played Injustice for the first time at San Diego Comic Con. And it was just because I just ended up serendipitously, just walking past the booth, and they were demoing. They were like, "Hey, you want to play this new game that we have, this new superhero game?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And it ended up being Injustice. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible!" Like all those like supers, especially that you have with like the stages and stuff. And I was like, "When does this game come out?" So yeah, I mean, there are so many other avenues, unfortunately, where people can get their gaming fix. And, just like we have a Comic-Con, this is like the Mecca. This is supposed to be the Mecca of, gaming. And, it's unfortunate that, they that this will is slowly not becoming that. And the more years that you have in which you are not having your show, that provides another opportunity for other shows to fill in that void. And I feel like slowly but surely, even in the years leading up to, that time in which a lot of shows were stopping because of the pandemic, that even then there were some shows that were slowly but surely, pulling away slightly that fan base that we had with E3. So it's really unfortunate, that they um had to get rid of or not or cancel their physical and their digital show. Hopefully we see a return of it, and this isn't just a preview of something more dire in which it'll not come back at all. Let's hope that's not the case. Because I've always wanted to go. Believe it or not, I haven't had a chance to hit that show, and that's just by virtue of the fact that it's another West Coast show. And me and Spill, we're both on the East Coast, and that's an investment to be able to make it over to the West Coast for for expo, for con, for a film festival, whatever the case may be. And as it stands now, it used to only be one show for me, but now I have two shows. Now I have, CES, and I have Comic-Con. And that those are, thankfully, they are far enough apart from one another to, kind of make that work. But, you know, E3 is typically in June, and that's a huge ask to do June and then go right back to the West Coast for, Comic-Con in July, investment wise. So did you have any additional thoughts, spills before we hop into our final two stories today?
No, I just, the COVID is just, if you walk, go down, this is a little bit of a tangent, but ladies and gentlemen, go to your downtown in your city or your wherever you are, that place where people used to go. Everything's boarded up, everything's closing. So, this is unfortunately just another case of COVID killing things, and it's going to continue to kill things for the next 3 or 4 years. So it's just sad, but
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
probably.
I was gonna say there are some shows that haven't been able to survive that period of time. And it looks like hopefully E3 is not going to be another casualty of that.
Mhm.
In the years that we haven't had that show, past years that we haven't had it, and hopefully, like I said, that it can make a resurgence. But we will, if should anything change, we will keep you updated and do our best to let you know if there's some additional updates regarding that matter. Now on to another topic, talking about the world of Marvel. There was news this week that Marvel Entertainment chairman Ike Perlmutter was let go this week. And
Oh, that's a
you know
great graphic.
so if,
He
if we're
snapped him.
talking about if we're talking about Ike Perlmutter, as I said, he is the chairman of Marvel Entertainment. But in his early days, Mike Perlmutter back in 2009, he had sold Marvel to Disney for $4 billion. He was at that time, prior to 2009, he was in control of much of Marvel, through the late 1990s, and helped to license properties like X-Men and Spider-Man to movie studios. So he had a hand in what we now have with our superhero films. However, at the same time, he's been greatly, unfortunately, has had a reputation of being very frugal, much to the chagrin of, many of the folks that, he was, working with, at that time. And, he had a schism, a well-known schism with, Kevin Feige, when Kevin Feige in the early days of Marvel Studios. And, in many cases, one could argue we wouldn't, in the same way that he's had a hand in helping Marvel get to where it is with many of its films. Um, in some cases too, we might not have had the MCU as we know it now because he was, allegedly trying to get Kevin Feige fired, to get him, out of Marvel. And as we all know, Kevin Feige has been, instrumental in many of the much of the MCU, the awesome parts of the MCU that we know now, as that figurehead, as that shepherding, producer, and helping to get these projects made. So, Spillman, you hear this news of, regarding Ike Perlmutter, and what are your thoughts?
I just want to say again, this is a great graphic. He's
Thank you, thank
got
you, thank you,
he got his finger snapped and he got up out of there. But I
thank
feel
you,
like
thank you.
somewhere there is a light skinned man with a do rag on
Oh my gosh.
named Terrence Howard, and he's
Uh
like, they
oh.
got him, man. They got him, man. I was
Oh
supposed to
man.
be War Machine. So tonight, I want you, ladies and gentlemen, to go to your Disney Plus accounts and scroll to the very end of the
Please don't go to
first
your Disney
Iron
Plus.
Man movie
This.
and see that part where they let Terrence Howard in the movie say, next time, baby. And then he asked for a little bit more money because he did say next time, baby. So he was assuming, they're going to have to pay more money for CGI for me because I can't actually fly. They're going to have to fly me on the CGI. And they said, no, actually, we're going to get somebody else in here, Terrence Howard. You never going to see this money, because it's hard out here for a pimp. But I'm just happy to see that, I like Ike Perlmutter because he did, low key, the movie franchises rescued Marvel comic books. There wouldn't be Marvel comic books to feed into a lot of the stories that they're doing now if they didn't sell out these properties as movie properties to make money because they went too hard into the ridiculous variant wars of the 90s with comic book shops, and they thought everybody was collecting them like they were Pokemon cards or something, and they was coming out with 3 and 4 and 12 different versions of the same comic book, and that's not how you actually sell comic books. You sell comic books by having good stories. So he got them, like you said, Blade, the X-Men movies, the Spider-Man movies. If those movies didn't do well, I don't think that we'd be sitting here talking about Marvel comic books anymore. I think that it would have gone much closer to how it went with the DC universe is going now, where it's just like we just keep telling the same 3 stories over and over and over again because nobody's written anything new because we're not paying nobody to. We're just reprinting things, and once you, as a publisher, start reprinting things, and you're not coming out with brand new things, it's a problem. So, it's he also, I saw an article, he tried to shake up the board at Disney, and he was a guy at Marvel, he wasn't a guy at Disney. So to go to the company that bought your company, try to tell people what for, it's a bad idea. That's not how things generally go. So unfortunately, he's gone. But if he didn't have the vision to actually sell these products, we wouldn't have a lot of this stuff right now. Like Disney is worth way more money because of him. So he didn't want to spend the money, but he also wanted to spend the money because they did make all these properties, and like just the idea. As you're somebody my age, the idea of having a live action Spider-Man or a live action Marvel movie or X-Men movie or something like that seemed
That
like a
was
pipe
unheard
dream
of. Yeah,
just 4 years
unheard of years
before.
ago.
Because like you think about like they did that really, like I'm sure he's probably had a hand in that Generation X movie that was on Fox, that made for
Oh
TV
my
movie that
gosh,
they
man,
did.
you taking it back.
Oh,
Wow,
that was a
Generation
bad
Next.
movie. That Fantastic Four movie from the
Hey, but
early
that was what we
'90s.
had. Hey, that's what we had though. That was our X-Men for a while. Like that.
Yeah,
That was it. That was it
that was
for a
it.
while.
So, just to have those actual movies be made and to have them be made to the quality that they were, because, we look back on the X-Men movies and it's not like looking at a bunch of like filth or slop. It's not like it's a bunch of claymation or
Yeah, it was
anything.
taken seriously.
It was pretty taken seriously, and they didn't go too goofy with it because I
Yeah,
always
they
say
tried to
comic
find a
books.
way to ground it in some
Yeah,
sense of reality. So,
right.
even with the excuse me, even with the MCU, with many of the films that they have, if we're looking at phase one, with many of those films, they tried to find a way, even with a lot of the characters that are kind of like, fantastical, like if we're
Yeah.
picturing like Thor, they still tried to bring some element of realism to it by incorporating science into it. So, and making them into aliens versus, kind of, alien beings versus mystical
Quote
beings.
unquote gods.
So
Yeah.
now that we've got into phase four, is kind of expanded out a little further, and we've gotten expanded a little more with some of those ideas, and they haven't felt the need because they now had the license to actually explore other ideas. But I don't know. It's kind of a catch-22 with Ike because you know he had a hand in some of the things that have helped to shape Marvel, to help to shape the MCU into what we know it to be now. Uh,
Hmm.
However, at the same time, he's also acted as an obstacle in a lot of the things that were trying to be done.
Hmm.
And so,
I'll give you an
and
analogy. I'll give
going
you an
and going.
analogy.
Okay, okay.
Ike Perlmutter is Doug Collins.
Oh boy.
Kevin Feige is Phil Jackson.
Oh boy.
Sure, sure, Doug Collins took the Bulls to a conference finals. He did. He said, give Michael the ball and everybody get out of the way and everything's going to be okay. But you can't win no championship like that. So to win the championships and have everybody be a key part and everybody come on board, they needed to get that Phil Jackson, aka Kevin Feige, to do what they needed to do. So,
All right. Fair enough.
I see what it is. So,
Fair enough.
that's
Fair
what it
enough.
is.
Fair
Sometimes
enough.
he'll get you there, but he won't get you over the mountaintop. So he got you to the mountain. He was like, "This is the mountain," but he was not the Sherpa to take us over. He was not there to take us over, but that's okay.
And
Sometimes.
I mean, I would say this, even though, even with all of those things, is still unfortunate to see that happen because I know Disney, at least according to the story, they're trying to make some cutbacks or cuts in jobs that they have. So according to the
Hmm.
story that we have in New York Times, in which they discuss this matter, Disney has started to eliminate up to 7,000 jobs. That's a lot, and they said it's
It's
about
crazy.
4% of their global total, but it accounts for 5.5 billion in cuts to improve Disney's financial results and to help the company uh, to continue its growth. So, in keeping all of that in mind, it's unfortunate to see anyone to lose their role, especially when they've had a hand in helping the company to get to where it is. But a lot of times too, when we're picturing a company, and you have those instances where sometimes things need to be streamlined, and you have new blood that comes in, or new ideas that need to be brought in, and you want to make sure that you are providing the environment to do that. And if what what we had with what you were talking about before, and they discussing the story about what you have with the matter regarding the board, that's a major thing of trying to create friction where you're trying to work as a unit to get to a certain goal. So
Yeah.
um, be that as it may, we do have another Marvel story. So the last story that we're going to get into today, and you guys probably saw it, not only in the promotional material that we have for this episode, but you can also see it in our background. So let me bring it up. So, after a substantial absence, a major figure in the MCU is making their return. So, what person or what character am I referencing? It is none other than Betty Ross. So, Betty Ross is set to make her return in Captain America New World Order, returning as Betty. Liv Tyler is set to make her return in Captain America New World Order. coming back as Betty Ross. Spillman, you hear this news of having Liv Tyler make her return, and what are your thoughts on it, sir?
So I am excited because we actually gonna have the Incredible Hulk be the Incredible Hulk again. Because if his girlfriend coming back, he about to be Incredible Hulk again. We're not gonna have no scared of Thanos Incredible Hulk or like a cool like beach dude Incredible Hulk that's found his life where he's doing charter fishing boats or whatever he was doing after the Infinity War movie and all that. But to have the Incredible Hulk back and having him smash some stuff, I imagine he was going to go back to the Savage Hulk. He's going to be back to that. We might even see a Red Hulk. I imagine, but the guy that played Thunderbolt, Ross, he passed, didn't he? The guy that played Thunderbolt Ross, I believe, passed.
Yes, but we have Harrison Ford taking over that role. So Harrison
Oh, even
Ford is
better.
actually taking over as
So
Ross. So
that
we're going to have.
definitely stamps
So
it.
that's the
He's going to be the
confirmation,
Red Hulk in
actually.
the movie. He's
So
going to be the
no,
Red
we
Hulk
will
in the
have
movie,
Red Hulk
probably.
in there. Trust and believe,
Yeah,
we will.
there you go.
So
So that'll be cool. We might get some Hulkbusters. We might get the leader in there. That'll be cool. We don't know yet, but just these, the Hulk. Obviously, this is what they do. They can't. They don't have to. This is the thing that guy. Speaking of Mister, your boy that we were just talking about, they do not have the rights to do Hulk movies. So what they've been doing is they've been really slick with it.
plugging them, yeah, they've been plugging them
They
into
could put
other
Hulk
movies.
in whatever he want to. So they was like, all right, we're gonna do a Thor Ragnarok movie, but really this is World War Hulk. This is Planet Hulk. This is what we're doing. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do a Hulk story, but we're gonna put the other characters in it and say it's their thing. So it's kind of like when Ghostface was on Raekwon the Chef's first album. And we were like, this is a Raekwon album, but actually, this is kind of a Ghostface album. It's kind of Ghostface. He's doing the thing. So this is what we're doing with the Hulk because everybody likes the Hulk. No one really likes Captain America. He's a great character. I know he's behind you. No offense to you, but he just throws things. Like who throws a shoe? Honestly, like that's what I feel about the Captain America. But people like the Incredible Hulk because he's got way more mythology behind him. He's a character that can carry his own shows and his own vehicles because that whole Doctor and Jekyll thing is great. The whole idea of a man struggling with the monster within himself and struggling with the things that happened before him before he became a great scientist that make him into the Incredible Hulk. Because most people, when they get them Hulk powers, don't be crushing stuff because they were beaten as children. So, like that's a very good character analysis of the human psyche and why people do the things that we do, and that's just great writing on the hands of the Marvel people. But Liv Tyler is a great actress. Loved her in Lord of the Rings. Loved her in Armageddon. Loved her. Just doing all the things she does. She's a great actress. Um, it's also good for Hollywood not like booting young ladies out of these jobs when they get past a certain age to be like, no, you can't be his girlfriend no more. We're going to get a new girl and act like she looks just like you, even though we know she doesn't. So that's good to see. But again, Disney knows what they're doing. The people don't want to see new characters for the most part. They do everything they can to keep people who are playing the people for whenever you see them again. So whenever you see from here on out, whenever you see Spider-Man, it's going to be the boy in Spider-Man now. Whenever you see Captain America, it's going to be Chris Evans. Whenever you see Thor, it's going to be the guy that plays Thor. They're not going to make the mistake that DC does, where they keep re-upping these actors, and they're like, okay, this is the sixth time you've done it. We have no care about it, but it's good that they bringing her back. She's a great actress. I'm happy for it. I'm happy to see it, and I'm happy for Hulk. Good for Hulk because I want to see Hulk smash things because he's been kind of soft. How do you feel about this?
So all right. So here's the thing, and I know that there's actually been a lot. So I know sometimes it's not always uh easy to be able to keep track of like all the goings on that have been happening in the world of like some of these movies. So I'm gonna bring up to speed. I think some of them but I'll help you out. Is that so? We will have. It has been confirmed. We will have Red Hulk.
Okay.
We will have Red Hulk because I'm right. We have Thaddeus Ross, in this film.
Hmm.
He's recast thanks to Harrison Ford. You know, unfortunately, we had William Hurt, pass away. Terrific actors, unfortunate, but we do have Harrison Ford, stepping into that role to take over where he left off as that character. And from what I understand, there has been rumblings that Ross will actually end up becoming President Ross.
Oh,
So
that'll be a good
so
arc too.
it adds a whole other element to to this film, and I'm figuring it plays into that subtitle that we have of New World Order. Now you were commenting on the leader. The leader actually will be making a return, and we
Oh,
actually
see,
will
there
have the
you go.
same actor coming back. So the same actor. It's really weird. It's going to be a Incredible Hulk reunion of sorts because not only is Liv Tyler returning back, as I said, as Betty Ross, but we have Tim Blake Nelson returning back as the leader. So uh my and I have no proof of this. My guess is that the leader will factor into what we get for Red Hulk. But the fact that we have Liv Tyler, excuse me, I'm about to say Liv Taylor, excuse me, Liv Tyler returning is I think this has larger implications than people are giving it credit for because right now, as it stands, they're really we it, Hulk may show up in this. He may not show up in this. We'll see what happens. Um, but if we're in fact bringing her into the film, that increases the likelihood that we will have Mark Ruffalo factor into this. Because I know another thing that has been, making the rounds is that this will kind of act as like another version of Civil War in that if we remember, guys, of Civil War kind of being an Avengers film, even though it was a Captain America film, it ended up still kind of being an Avengers film where we had other Avengers characters in it. There will
Hmm.
be, other characters who will appear in this film. Of course, we'll have, Bucky Barnes, but we'll also have the new Falcon pop up. If anyone has are caught up on Falcon and Winter Soldier, you'll know who our new Falcon is. Um, will be popping up in there. But this also brings other implications too, because it begs the question whether they have Hulk in it or not. What is the purpose of having Betty Ross in this project? And it makes me think that again, going back to that theory of how vital she is to the story, perhaps she factors into the catalyst that turns Ross into the Red Hulk.
Hmm.
Something happens to her,
Hmm.
turns him into Red Hulk. He's taking, being experimented on, and that's the final straw that turns him into Red Hulk. Maybe this factors into other things. It has other implications too. Maybe this factors into. I know you were talking about World War Hulk. You haven't really had that adaptation as of yet. But now that we have a Red Hulk, we have all these Hulks popping up. We have She-Hulk. We have all these Hulks that are making an appearance thus far in the MCU. Well, basically, it sounds like we may have a free for all between all these different Hulks that we have. So that's a possibility too. And again, if memory serves, Betty Ross is the Red She-Hulk. So
Yep.
like there's so many implications of having her in here that I know it felt like when it was announced that it wasn't getting as much attention as I feel like it should, and I feel like it has far more implications than people are giving it credit for. This may end up being a a bigger deal than people are believing it to be in terms of how it can factor into the story and what they can have her character be involved in or factor into. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that it can have those implications, but again, they've left a lot of the Hulk storylines out of these movies, except for they did the World War Hulk stuff, but they've left a lot of the Hulk storylines out. They left a lot of the Hulk characters out. So for them to continue to use him to continue the stories because there's not a lot of Captain America storylines. Like Captain America is a great character, but Captain America always has had stories with other characters. He's never really had I mean, he's had stuff, but they've kind of explored most of them. Most of the Captain America stories is he loses his faith in the country. That's basically what they say with him. He lost his faith, and he's got to come back to the flag and wrap himself in it again. But the Hulk stories are much better written. They've had better writers on them historically, so they've been better story arcs and stuff. So for them to be still using the Hulk stories, and using the Hulk characters, while also weaving them into different projects and franchises, as it were, it's just just shows that DC knows. I mean, Marvel knows what they're doing with these movies. They know what they're doing with these properties, and I'm just happy to see them do their thing right. I'm happy to see because like most of the appearances for Hulk are good movies. Like the best Thor movie was a Hulk movie. The best, like the stuff with the World War, like the best scenes in the original Avengers movies were Hulk scenes. Like the scene when Loki tries to talk to Hulk, and Hulk is like, "Hold on, dog, I'm Hulk. You don't talk to Hulk like that. Hulk smash." So it's just like it's just it's just a wealth of intellectual property and just creativity that they can continue to use. Maybe this might be a dark horse because they've been teasing this mutant stuff for weeks and months and years. Maybe this is how they get Wolverine into the MCU because
Oh,
Wolverine
oh,
started
I got
out
some on that too. I got
as a
some on that
Hulk
too.
character.
So I don't know if
So
you have you been privy to how this might factor into mutants.
yes,
Okay, so you are privy to how this might factor into Wolverine or no?
I am. I mean, I've read the comic book, so I know.
No, I'm saying what they're planning to do with this film.
I don't. I have. I'm not privy to
Okay,
this, but it could be the
excuse me.
one. Yeah, there we go. Tell us,
So
oh wise one.
so the what's been out there is that they're finally going to address the celestial that's been just hanging out, the frozen celestial that's just been hanging out in the ocean from
Mm-hmm.
Eternals,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to find out that that celestial, it being frozen like that, is actually going to be the origins of adamantium,
Okay, there you go.
and you're going to actually have you're going to have all of these factions, which again also factors into our subtitle of New World Order. You're going to have all
Mm-hmm.
these factions, all of these parties, whether it's Ross with the U.S. now that he is in the seat of office as the president, and all these other factions too that
Department
are in the.
H.
So you have all these factions that are basically in an arms race or in a in a race to actually get this adamantium from I want to say the name of the celestial was Tiamat from
Mm-hmm.
Eternals. That was the name of the celestial that didn't destroy Earth. Uh, I'll double check that, and if you guys want to let me know in the comments, I want to say it's Tiamat. But anyway, long story short is that is going to act as their origin for adamantium, which, as we well know, factors into Wolverine. So if we're getting into adamantium, Wolverine is not that far behind with what they decide to do with that, because I mean so much of Captain America has been centered around in terms of their plots have been centered around super soldiers.
Mm-hmm. And
Arguably
that's what Wolverine
one
is.
exactly one way or another. I mean, the first one, it was the origin of Steve Rogers, of course. The second one, the Winter Soldier, the Super Soldier program. The third one, even though it had the excuse me, it had the backdrop of Civil War. You still, within all of that, towards the end, you still had that super soldier plot that was happening towards the end of
Mm-hmm.
that program that the Winter Soldier was trained through. So um whether we've liked it or not. Even in Falcon and Winter Soldier with U.S. Agent, with John, another super
Mhm.
soldier, with the Flag Smashers, more super soldiers. It's always been the theme that we've had with Captain America. So, and as we well know, when it comes to our, if we're picturing comics and we're talking about, the weapons program, Weapons Plus, Weapon One was Captain America, and of course, as you well know, Wolverine is Weapon. I'm sure you know 10.
That's
There you
right. That's
go.
right.
So,
X gonna give it
so
to
there you
him.
go. X marks the spot. X marks the
That's
spot.
right.
So,
And I think
yeah,
I seen
no.
your boy doing the sit-ups. I think we've seen what's his name? I don't know if he'll play Wolverine in this movie, but we've seen him doing the sit-ups on the internet.
Well, we have that
That ain't
because we
for
have
Broadway.
our new Deadpool movie, but in which he's gonna factor into that. But again, like it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, because when we look back on this, it'll be interesting to see how much we were correct about, or in terms of saying that her character, even though it seems like in terms of the news cycle, it's kind of like snuck under the rug. It feels like that, people are
Mm-hmm.
kind of, it's felt like a lot of people be like, oh, okay, Liv Tyler. Okay, cool. But they've been like, oh, Betty Ross is coming back. Okay, cool. That's cool. Versus, oh, snap. What does that mean that Betty Ross
What
is
does it
coming
mean?
back? Like, no, I think it's going to have a bigger deal than people are giving it credit for. And you heard it here first, that it's going to have a bigger deal than people are giving it credit for. So, the when in thinking of that, do you have any theories of maybe how the plot, now that you have that I've gotten you up to speed with some of that extra info, you know, do you have any like thoughts of how it could play out? Because I have my theories, but I'm curious to know what yours are
Well, I mean, the
in
way
terms
that
of
they've
maybe like story
always,
beats, I guess.
yeah, I was going to say the way that they've always written Thunderbolt Ross is someone who's very into the registration of superheroes.
Of course, yes, yeah,
And the whole thing with the X-Men is, you can't be registering us like we are not human beings. Like no
right,
other human beings have to be registered with the government so that they can track them and everything. So,
right.
that and New World Order is a thing that they have had issues with the mutants, because the mutants are not superheroes in the way that traditional superheroes are in the movie. They don't get bitten by a spider or happen to be a billionaire with an arms dealer father or something like that. They're just people that happen to have a genetic mutation, like myself, to be tall and handsome. So, you know, so they just, it's hard to control something like that. So it's just something that we'll see. I think it's going to be fire. I'm excited to see it. So I think that again, like we were saying earlier, Wolverine started out as an Incredible Hulk character. Like people forget that.
Incredible
Most
Hulk
people don't
villain.
know that he
Yeah,
was a villain. He fought the
yeah.
Incredible Hulk because Wolverine be fighting people, because that's what Wolverine do. He be hitting people with them hands. So,
And the best there is of
and
what I do, and what I do is not very nice.
it's not very nice. So, and to bring Betty Ross back, like I said, Betty Ross is not a character for the Smart Hulk. She's not Joe Fixit's girlfriend. She's the Incredible Hulk's girlfriend. So Hulk will be back to his prime fighting shape. We haven't seen him in prime
I'm
fighting
glad
shape
you
in a
said that,
while.
because that actually factors into what my theory is.
Yeah.
So, okay. So here are my thoughts on perhaps how this movie is going to play out. And I could be wrong about it, but it'll be interesting to see when we look back on this how much I might be right about. So, as I said, they're saying that Ross will end up being the president of the United States. And so if we're picturing him as the president of the United States, and we already have Val as head of the CIA, which we come to find out in Black Panther, um, and we have those two parties that are in these parts of office, then perhaps what's going to happen is, and again, I have no proof of this, guys, but I'm just going to make some theories of maybe some story beats that may happen, is, we had that situation, that opening conflict of them trying to get the adamantium, right? And that'll act as like the opening scene, kind of like what we had in Civil War, where we had that opening scene, that opening action sequence where we had the Avengers like trying to fight this faction of people. We didn't really have a clear idea of who they were, but they were trying to go after them. Now, with this story, perhaps we have Sam and the small team at this point that he has that are Avengers. Perhaps he has his new Falcon, and I'm gonna actually put up say the actor's name because I keep saying so. Danny Ramirez, who actually plays Joaquin Torres from Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm picturing it's going to be him and Bucky, and they're going to factor in as a small mini Avengers team at that point that are going to take on a faction as on Tiamat to battle over to prevent that group from getting their hands on the adamantium. And my guess is that they end up defeating them, and somehow we find out that there's also a third party involved, or perhaps whoever sent them to take care of them may actually be Ross because he secretly has his own intentions with the adamantium. And so we also find out that up to this point that perhaps he's had the leader in his pocket, where he had basically had the leader maybe away in prison, because remember we had the raft from Civil War. Maybe he had him in prison, and maybe the only way that he can be freed is if he helps him design super soldiers with the super soldier program. And perhaps the way Betty figures in is, I'm picturing perhaps something may happen to her, and I don't believe she's going to die, but it may be implied that she doesn't survive. And because of that circumstance, we're going to actually get a catalyst not only for Red Hulk, but we're also going to get a catalyst for World War Hulk, which is what you were talking about. So it would be far more interesting if Bruce makes a cameo in this film versus actually playing an active role, because it gives the character something to do as in terms of a story arc, where maybe he doesn't, because of the circumstances that have happened in She-Hulk, he doesn't really want to get involved with any matters pertaining to the US, or maybe because he's so busy with again, spoiler again, maybe because he's so busy with his with Scar and what's going on off world, that he doesn't really have as much time to really invest in the matters that are happening on Earth. So maybe that will take him away, and that provides an even bigger challenge, because let's be honest, it wouldn't be as big of a challenge to go up against Red Hulk if they have a Hulk of their own. But if they don't have a Hulk and they still have to go up against Red Hulk, that would be an interesting challenge to have with your villain. So a lot of times when if we've noticed in a lot of superhero films, if we have a character that can kind of end things very quickly, they try to find ways to take them out of the proceedings. It happens a lot with Professor X. Like I remember in all the X-Men movies, always something happened to Professor X that took him out of the movie. Something happened. Whether it was the first movie, he got sidelined, the second movie, he got sidelined somehow. So I think they're going to sideline the Hulk by taking him off world, because they'll say that he has some matter that he has to take care of with his son.
I mean, he was already off world at the end of that She-Hulk show. Spoiler alert,
right. But I'm saying more so, it'll give them an excuse to remove him from the story, so that way they have to take on Red Hulk by themselves. However, I still believe, like I said, something's going to happen to Betty Ross, and that's going to be a catalyst for Harrison Ford for Ross somehow turning into Red Hulk. But I think the news is going to get back to Bruce somehow, and instead of him staying as Professor Hulk, he's going to end up becoming World War Hulk and coming back, making his way back to Earth. So he's not going to, perhaps be in because there are going to be 2 Avengers movies. So perhaps he's not going to be in Kang Dynasty, but he's going to show up again and maybe Secret Wars. So
Maybe.
That's what
I
I'm
still
saying.
think that Hulk was a scroll anyway. I've
Who
been
knows?
thinking he was a scroll this whole time.
Because what they're saying is the reason why I bring that up, and why we have Ross as the president. Are you familiar with the Dark Reign run?
Yes.
So if we're picturing how that story played out, it seems like they're kind of adapting that now, because we have Secret Invasion. Even if it's not like the huge Secret Invasion story that we may have in the comics, we do have the story playing out. So perhaps what's happening here is that something's going to happen with our offices of government in Secret Invasion, and that's going to give, instead of it being, what's the character's name, Green Goblin, instead of it being Osborn that is able to kind of hop in and act as the hero, it may be Ross that does that, and that's how he ends up becoming the president.
Maybe, but
you
again,
have
it's so many loose ends, because that Hulk didn't do no Hulk. He hasn't done no Hulk stuff in like 5 years. He hasn't been the Hulk for 5 years, and it's like he be looking like the Hulk, but he's like how when Gucci Mane got out of prison, and everybody was like, "Is this Gucci Mane?" Because he don't act like Gucci Mane. They say he's Gucci Mane, but he doesn't seem like the same person to me. Or Avril Lavigne, quote unquote. That's not, I'm not going to say that these internet conspiracies are true, ladies and gentlemen. They're just things that I've read on the internet that I get tickled by. But I don't think that this Hulk has been the Hulk the whole time. And I think it's going to come out that he's not the Hulk when Wolverine tries to cut his arm off, because he's Wolverine, and Wolverine is going to do, because that, like, this whole thing. I don't think that America is going to get the adamantium, because there's no Americans with adamantium in the comic books. We're going to just give Americans adamantium. That's not how it works. Adamantium is something that other people have. So, because we try to get the vibranium, because we try to get that puro, but, it's other stuff out here that you can get. But I don't think that, I don't think that it's going to. I think Alpha Flight is going to be in this next New World Order movie, and it's going to really start introducing mutants. We're going to have Puck. We're going to have Vindicator.
I don't know. I think they may hold off on mutants, because there's so much going on right now, and that was stuff that would overstuff an already dense movie. Because they're also saying that we're going to have the Serpent Society. And I'm like, how is the Serpent Society going to factor in there? So
Serpent Society are throwaway villains.
So that's what I'm saying. So
villains.
They're probably, remember I was talking about the beginning of the movie, and when they had that conflict of fighting over the adamantium on Tiamat. So that opening sequence, they're probably going to go up against Serpent Society.
Doesn't one of the Serpent Society guys have adamantium coils on his arms?
I think so. It's been a minute.
Like the Constrictor or something. I think that's his name, maybe.
So I would have to look. It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
I'm just saying, it's a lot of adamantium characters. Maybe we'll get a Lady Deathstrike again. That would be kind of cool.
We gotta hold off on Lady Deathstrike.
Or Maverick. But again, these are all super soldier type characters. All these characters are super soldiers.
I honestly think they're not really going to get very mutant heavy until this saga is over with the multiverse. I mean,
I don't know.
They're right now, don't get me wrong, they are teasing, characters that have been confirmed as mutants. I mean, we have Miss Marvel, of course, spoiler again, but series has been out for a minute. But they've also confirmed it with Namor too. Like, he himself confirms it that he's a mutant.
Right. He said it in the movie. He said, I am a mutant. So
right. So
and also, if you remember from the comic books, Namor is known as the first mutant. That's what they call him.
Right. But I'm saying, what I'm saying is that they're going to pepper. I still feel they're peppering mutants in there, so that way people get accustomed to that idea. But I don't think they're really going to dive into it until after this saga is over. Like, because I mean, Secret Wars is going to give them an opportunity to bring a lot of the old guard back, so it allows them to have their last hurrah before we get new iterations of these characters.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we have that with Hugh Jackman with this Deadpool movie, of him factoring into that. And then of course we'll likely have Tobey Maguire, and we'll have what's his name, and
I hope they
Garfield
don't
back,
bring them
Andrew
back
Garfield.
again.
So
Don't bring them back again. It was cute for the one movie, but please, we don't need no no thanks.
Andrew Garfield, yeah, I liked Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield's cool with me. So, um,
Get him out of here. Get him out of here. That
so
was cute for the one movie, but no, we don't need a bunch of guys in the same costume playing the same characters. That's confusing and weird. And that's where you lose people. And this is what I'm talking about comic book movies. We can't do too much of that. Like it works in the comic books. It's cool when you got like Spider-Man from the 60s and Spider-Man from the 80s meeting each other because they just draw them the same. Like that's not that hard to do. But to have these same actors who play different characters and then like have a Spider-Man who doesn't murder people and a Spider-Man who does murder people, that don't look right on the same screen. It's like, wait, this Spider-Man can just kill people. It's okay. We don't need to see that. So, just to keep everything cool, keep these same characters and don't be mixing the universes too much. I know that it's a multiverse and anything can happen, but that gets confusing and also it gets lazy at a certain point.
And here's my thing. I do agree with you to a point that they need to definitely be careful of them not overusing that trope of
This
this saying that we can kill this character off because they're a variant, or it's not going to have the same impact because they're a variant, or this character's going to
mm-hmm.
come in and, oh, by the way, it's not a variant, it's the original kid. So like I understand the idea of the multiverse providing a license to bring characters back that perhaps maybe the original character died, and it allows them a license to be able to bring characters back. But at the same time, there is an undeniable excitement and a coolness, even if it's just temporary, of seeing the possibility of seeing Hugh Jackman and all of the X-Men that we had in the early 2000s share the screen with the characters that we have in the MCU. That would be really cool. Even
That'd
if
be
it is just
badass.
for a moment. If we have
That'd be
Blade, if we
very
have
badass.
Wesley Snipes in there,
Yeah.
we have Blade, we have
But
all of our Punishers.
they already got a new Blade. Unfortunately,
It don't
they got
matter.
Marshall Ali.
It don't matter. That's what I'm
Nah, I feel
saying.
like that's too
It
much.
don't
That's too
matter.
much. I feel like it's
It
too
don't
much.
matter. You put it in Secret Wars and it don't matter.
Oh no, I don't want to see that. That
It
that
don't
that would.
matter. So
That's too much of a money grab to me. Too much of a money grab, and I know that these people like money. I know they like money, but come on, guys. Like, you do much better with these kind of movies when you make them stay in reality. When people die, they have to stay dead. You can't be bringing people back. I know they love to do that in the comic books. Jean Grey will come back and fall from death. They've killed Wolverine. They've killed Cyclops. They've killed Captain America. But you can't just you can't make people suspend belief in the mechanism of death because if people don't have depth, then the stakes in the stories will no longer have meaning. Just like in Dragon Ball, like if you watch Dragon Ball, the Dragon Ball characters come back from the dead all the time. The first couple of times that somebody died and they were sad, they were sad. Now people die, they be like, it don't matter that he got killed by that guy. We just wish him back with the Dragon Balls. It doesn't matter. He'll be back. Like we can't have that he'll be back stuff. Like that's just
I get you. I
it's
get you. No,
too
and I
much.
understand that. I understand the idea of losing the impact of stakes in a story when characters that have died have been able to come back. And again, once I'm since this is we have this multiverse saga that is going on. I know that may be something that we may really have to contend with, and I'm not jealous of that problem that Marvel will have of trying to be able to contend with that. But again, just being able to have that coolness factor of the only way that you're going to be able to top the portal scene from Endgame is by doing what I was saying of having the X-Men in there, by having, Spider-Man in there, by having all of these factions and really having it be a culmination of all of these years of superhero films. And if sometimes there are going to be some elements in that we may not always like, uh, in order to get to that point, I'm willing to put up with it in order to get to that destination, if that makes sense. But I do
I
agree with you.
guess.
But I do agree with you that they really do need to be careful now that they are doing this. They're in the middle of this multiverse saga of not cheapening a lot of the major events that happen by utilizing the trope of variance too much. So
Yep. I think what they should do is honestly use the first class universe of X-Men character of X-Men actors, because they've already done a movie where they brought back all those old actors. They did
right,
that what you call it movie. What was the movie? It
days
wasn't,
of
it was Days of Our Future
days
Past.
of future
They
past. Yeah,
already did that story. So they've already had the old X-Men come in and play themselves and stuff, and that's cool and everything. You could bring in the Wolverine character because Wolverine has been Wolverine all the way through. They've had different actresses and actors play everybody else. So to me, to have like you know Halle Berry and all of them come back is just like kind of like I'm kind of tired of it. Use the same X Men characters that you used before in the last X Men movies because they've had a bunch of them that are recent, and these actors are at an age where you could theoretically use them for the next 10 years. I think to try to continue to use like Hugh Jackman, maybe you could slide with him for the next 10 years because he's in good shape, and Wolverine is a man that never ages, and Hugh
see, that's
Jackman
the
seems to
thing. I
never
don't think they're
age.
gonna. I don't think they're gonna do that. I think, like I said, a lot of these old guard characters, they're gonna wrap them up for Secret Wars, and that'll be it. Like it's not. They're gonna do a soft reboot, so to speak. If we're talking multiverse in Secret Wars, it's gonna be a small reboot of sorts, and the focus is gonna shift towards mutants and them providing their own iterations of these characters of mutants that we know, whether it's with the X-Men or any other mutant faction that we have. So
Yeah, but I mean, also, in the last 10 or 12 years, that's what they've been doing in the comic books. They've been bringing back characters from the 60s and like doing time portals and bringing them back. And it's hard to read that kind of stuff because it's just like,
I hear
okay,
you.
we've suspended the timeline for this stuff. Like, it works if it's a character from the future coming back to the past. That works because we
Right,
don't know that guy. But if we
right,
take people from the past and move them to the future, then you start to get confused. And you be like, well, if you went from the past to the future and then back to the past, why did you make all the mistakes that you did in your past that we saw you make if you already know what's going to happen? Did you talk to
right.
yourself? You were right there with yourself. Like the character of the Beast. The Beast turned himself blue accidentally. But in the comic books, they brought the Beast from the 60s back to the future. Would the Beast from the 60s be like, hey man, what did you do to mess yourself up like this? I don't want to be a blue wolf. Like what did you do to yourself? Like, please help me
Right.
not make this mistake. Like this seems like a mistake. I don't want to do this. Or Iceman being a powder Iceman, but then seeing the Iceman has got like a full ice body. Like, tell me, how did I do that? Help me to make myself a stronger Iceman. So the time travel thing, before you know it, your eyes will get crossed and it won't make no sense. So they got to
Yeah,
be real careful
they do.
with doing too much of that stuff.
They do. But with
Yeah.
that out of the way, those are our
Yeah,
thoughts for tonight.
that's our
We'll wrap
thoughts,
it
ladies
up.
and gentlemen.
But I'm gonna punt it over to Spill. Spill, can you tell folks where they can find you, sir?
You can find me on on Instagram at Truly Spill, and also this week only, you can find me on OnlyFans at Truly Spill on OnlyFans this week only. I'm not telling the truth because it's April Fool's Day. I told you all at the beginning of the show. Don't believe anything I say. It's not real. It's not a real thing. I'm not going to put any gigantic feet pictures of anything that you sickos on the
Wow,
internet want to see.
bro.
That's not what I'm
Bro.
doing. I'm not doing that at all.
Wow.
But follow us. Make sure you give the show 5 stars and write your Kevin Feige's of the world and make sure they don't do too much time travel. Tell them time travel is confusing. Please. Thank you.
Well, that out of the way again, I want to thank Spillman for co-hosting with me for this week in review. I am your host, Brandon Choi, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks you guys so much for watching. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on Twitter and Brandon Choi _ENT on Instagram. You can also find us using that hashtag TWnRMNSU. So that is This Week in Review, Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there. And as always, see you soon. Peace.
Peace. 5 stars. 5 stars. 5 stars.